I'm Dr. Neil Payne, Chairman of the Board of the Southern Legal Resource Center.
And I'm Kirk D. Lyons. I'm the Chief Trial Counsel of the Southern Legal Resource Center, and this is All Things Confederate.
Kirk, what's going on in the Confederacy this week?
Well, we had a serious omission from our very first broadcast. Of course, we're still learning as we go along on this thing. But we left out the fact that of the 14 camps that sponsored polls in downtown Lexington, and this was done under the providence of the SCV Heritage Defense Committee.
You're talking about the Lee Jackson
Lee Jackson Vigil that just finished in Lexington. And we asked people to sponsor polls and then man those polls and pay $100 for the privilege, and they get to name the poll, and that money would go to the litigation against the city of Lexington. And it was done. We had 44 polls. We only got pledges on 14 of them. Almost over a third. But of those 14 camps, over half were North Carolina division camps. So we were very proud of the old Tar Heel State. There was a lot of North Carolinians that came up to Lexington for this. A lot of other people too, but since we're members of North Carolina Division, I just want to give a pat on the back to the old North State. We'll be seeing all our compatriots this weekend at the Division Executive Council meeting near the little town of Warsaw, North Carolina. And I expect to bring a report there, and I'm going to tell the assembled camps there what a great job North Carolina did in supporting this event.
Well, I'm glad that the Tar Heels were in the tradition of their ancestors being first with the farthest with the most.
Foremost, absolutely. Next year, the Lee Jackson holiday is January 18th and 19th in Virginia. And so the Saturday will actually be Lee's birthday. So if you're an SCV camp, if you're a UDC chapter, OCR, Children of the Confederacy, father-in-law, mother-in-law, or pet, you need to come to Lexington next year. Put it on your calendar now. Plan on sponsoring a poll. We got plenty to go around. And let's go back there and show those people that we will never go away. We will always be there for them until they stop insulting our heroes.
Well, this is something that has to be stopped. We cannot allow them to continue to trash the memory of our heroes, our ancestors. They do it in Lexington and think they can get away with it. And they've actually physically trashed one of our monuments here in North Carolina. Tell us about Reidsville.
Well, Reidsville, Rockingham County, which is up on the border with Virginia, it's kind of away from everything. It's a rural county. In 1911, the people of the United Daughters of the Confederacy chapter there paid for and erected a monument to the Confederate soldier in the city of Reidsville. And many years later, they had a dedication of the 100th anniversary. And shortly after that, last year, a truck driver who was supposedly asleep came careening through the downtown of Reidsville and smashed into the monument and knocked it over. And the city, I mean, one would think if the trucker has insurance, which I'm sure he did, they would be paying for everything.
If you
Absolutely.
ran into a telephone pole, you know, that
Exactly. But the city used this as an excuse to get rid of the monument, which was their aim. And that might have been their aim all along because, as we've discussed, HK has some reservations about how this magical truck got where it did.
I talked with HK, and next week we hope to have him on our program to give us more of an explanation about the circuitous route that this supposedly asleep person took to get to the monument while he was asleep. And I also want to do an on-site program, go to Reidsville and film the route of the magic van or truck.
We're reenactors. Yeah. We're going to reenact it.
Show you what he had to do asleep to get to that monument and knock it over.
Sadly, the North Carolina United Daughters of the Confederacy president folded her house of cards very quickly when the city came a-calling, and they said, well, this is your monument, and y'all need to just pack it and get out of here and go put it somewhere else. And the Madam President supinely agreed, and so the city thinks that the case closed. Well, the Sons of Confederates and a local group there, in a political action group there in Reidsville, got involved, and we actually got involved as well. The Southern Legal Resource Center did some research, and the first thing we did is went over here about 10 feet to my right, to our complete edition of the Confederate Veteran Magazine and looked up Reidsville Monument, and I actually found an article that said that the United Daughters of the Confederacy had a dedication service in the city of Reidsville and gave the monument to the city of Reidsville, and the mayor was on hand to receive it.
So then the monument belonged to the city.
Belonged to the city. Tim Wyatt, the judge advocate of North Carolina Division, followed up that research and was able to find newspaper articles essentially proving the same thing, that essentially that the UDC gave the monument. So they had no dog in the fight. They had no say whether it should be removed or not.
And then
so what the president said is valueless.
Control of the monument then passed to the state, didn't it?
Passed to the state. Tim did a lot of research on that and traced the law. And it's very complex administrative law. It's not the kind of work I like to do. But Tim is a good researcher. He just out of law school, his first couple of years of practice, and he researched it and found that under North Carolina law that the monument had passed to the control of the state of North Carolina, and therefore for the monument to be taken down and removed, they have to go through the North Carolina Historical Commission. That is the law in this state. That was not done. And so the North Carolina Division, under the leadership of Commander Tom Smith, filed an administrative complaint with the Department of Motor Vehicles, and the Department of Motor Vehicles has agreed to hear the complaint. So that's the first step.
Okay.
We'll see how that pans out.
Well, we hope to bring you a little bit more about that next week. We have H.K. Edgerton on the program.
And that will be an interesting program. You all need to definitely, this show will rock.
Tune in for that.
That's right. Another P.S. on Lexington. I was contacted yesterday by an independent newspaper reporter with the Rockbridge Advocate. And that's kind of the once-a-week paper in the town of Lexington. And he says all the things that the Roanoke Times and the other Gannett-owned newspapers can't or won't say.
Was this I read an article, I think it was the Rockbridge Times, that had somebody complaining about the carpetbaggers that had taken over the city council.
And he's not afraid to print stuff like that. And been around for quite a while. He's what I call an honest liberal. And he called with some questions. And first of his questions were, he wanted to know if there was anybody passing out Ku Klux Klan literature. And I said, well,
where did they get that idea?
I was there. I was in charge for the Sons of Confederate Veterans Heritage Defense Committee of putting on the vigil, the downtown vigil. The Stonewall Brigade camp under Brandon Dorsey did all the other events, the parade, the VMI Lee Chapel thing, the thing at the Horse Center, the symposium on Friday, which is all great, but we did the vigil. And there was nobody down there passing out Ku Klux Klan anything. And if there had been, we'd have run them off, because that was our event, not theirs. And, we don't do mixed messages, and that's not something that we tolerate. SCV's made its position abundantly clear on extremist groups. And so I told him, no, there was nobody like that. He says, well, we had some reports given to us, and then he started asking questions about me, and information supplied by the Southern Poverty Law Center from our good friend, Morris Dees, who is a known and noble truth teller. He's been telling the truth since 1961. And
is this the attorney that was
kicked out of
suborning perjury?
He was kicked out of a
Carolina?
Criminal trial for attempted suborning of perjury, and the officer that he attempted to suborn is still working.
Is that right?
And still says, yeah, he tried to get me to lie. I've actually talked to that officer and to his friend who was there at the time, who was an SCV member. And
this is the source that they use.
This is the source, and his minions, Heidi Byrick and Mark Potok. Some of the most photogenic people you'll ever run across. But anyway, this guy, at least, unlike most journalists, they would just get the dribble from the Southern Poverty Law Center and they'll print it. This guy did the unthinkable. He called me, and he wanted to know what my take on it was. And I got to talk to him for an hour. So that story's coming out. We'll let you know how it goes. We're fixing to wrap up our first 10 minutes here. Stay tuned for part 2. While you're waiting, become a member of the Southern Legal Resource Center. $35 a year, best $35 you'll ever spend. P.O. Box 1235, Black Mountain, North Carolina, 28711. Donate today.